Dr. Mason here again. I've entitled this lecture Green Eggs and Ham. Now, we've been talking about Socrates and how the Greeks had a different view of the universe. Well, Socrates and the Greeks held a monopoly on thinking, at least in Europe, for almost the first millennium AD. But later in the second millennium, as the alchemists began their quest to turn common metals into gold, the Greek elements began taking on a new light. They were redefined in view of new technologies that showed that the earth could indeed be broken down into smaller units. Well, these original get-rich-quick efforts, if you will, of the alchemists, they were looking to try and turn lead into gold or other elements into gold, opened up a whole new era, a whole new age, and we call this age of reductionism. And that reductionism then ushered into our age of scientific thinking. Investigators began trying to reduce the world around them, both the living and the non-living world, the abiotic, the non-living, and the biotic components. And they tried to break these components up into smaller units. What initially started as an economic endeavor ushered in this age of science, this age of investigation. Well, we have seen how components and molecules can be broken down into their atomic structure. So, can we reduce living things down to their smallest units? Well, yeah, we can. With the invention of the telescope, the mysteries of the heavens began to unfold. Shortly after the telescope, the microscope was developed, and the investigations turned to looking at the unseen universe in nature. Well, we talk about cells. What is a cell anyway? Schleiden and Schwann were two old German scientists in the 1800s, and they developed what we now refer to as cell theory. Cell theory says that all living things are composed of cells, that cells are the smallest unit of life, and that all cells come from pre-existing cells. Well, how big is a cell anyway? Can we see a cell with our naked eye? What's the biggest cell? Well, for the most part, cells are very small. In fact, cells are microscopic, too small to be seen with the unaided eye. And yet, all cells are not small. Ever think about cell theory when you're eating breakfast at IHOP? 2 eggs, bacon, toast, a cup of coffee. Well, an egg is a single cell. Just as humans start as an unfertilized single cell, a chicken egg is, hopefully, by the time we're eating it, a single unfertilized cell. Elephant birds' eggs were so big that they would hold over 2 gallons of liquids, and yet they were still a single cell the size of a basketball. Of course, most cells are not that big because of the volume-surface area ratio, which your book talks about. Well, if all things are composed of cells, and cells are the smallest unit of life, and all cells come from pre-existing cells, that begs the question, how did the first cell come into existence? And if that doesn't give you a headache, what about thinking about things that aren't composed of cells, like viruses and bacteriophages and prions? They are non-cellular, but certainly they play an important role in living systems. Well, are they alive? Oh, who knows? I think it's time for cake and ice cream, don't you? See you next time.